Today's reading is from the story Holes. In this tale, Stanley Yelnats is a young man who is unjustly imprisoned and sent to Camp Green Lake, a barren detention centre where boys dig holes endlessly, yet hidden beneath the surface lies a complex story. 3 intertwining narratives gradually unravel a mystery that culminates in a breathtaking conclusion. This novel skillfully addresses themes of race and the justice system while maintaining a delicate balance between absurdity and tragedy. In this extract, Stanley is on the bus on the way to Camp Green Lake, reflecting on how he arrived in this ridiculous situation. Here are your 3 questions. 1. Who is Stanley Yelnats and where is he on the bus? Number 2. How does Stanley pass the time on the bus and what is he pretending about his destination? Number 3. What does Stanley see outside the window as he looks out during the bus ride? Here is your discussion question. Do you make your own look? Stanley was sitting about 10 rows back, handcuffed to his armrest. His backpack lay on the seat next to him. It contained his toothbrush, toothpaste, and a box of stationery his mother had given him. He promised he'd write to her at least once a week. He looked out of the window. Although there wasn't much to see, mostly fields of hay and cotton. He was on a long bus ride to nowhere. The bus was not air-conditioned, and the hot, heavy air was almost as stifling as the handcuffs. Stanley and his parents had tried to pretend he was just going away to camp for a while, just like the rich kids do. When Stanley was younger, he used to play with stuffed animals and pretend the animals were at camp. Camp fun and games, he'd called it. Sometimes he'd have them play soccer with a marble. Other times they'd run an obstacle course or go bungee jumping off a table tied to a broken rubber band. Now Stanley tried to pretend he was going to camp fun and games. Maybe he'd make some friends, he thought. At least he'd get to swim in the lake. He did not have any friends at home. He was overweight, and the kids at his middle school often teased him about his size. Even his teachers sometimes made cruel comments without realising it. On his last day of school, his maths teacher, Mrs. Bell, taught ratios. As an example, she chose the heaviest kid in the class and the lightest kid in the class, and had them weigh themselves. Stanley weighed 3 times as much as the other boy. Mrs. Bell wrote the ratio on the board 3-1, unaware of how much embarrassment she had caused both of them. Stanley was arrested later that day. He looked at the guard who sat slumped in his seat and wondered if he had fallen asleep. The guard was wearing sunglasses, so Stanley could not see his eyes. Now, Stanley was not a bad kid. He was innocent of the crime for which he was convicted. He'd just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it was all because of his no-good, dirty, rotten, pig-stealing great-great-grandfather. He smiled. It was a family joke. Whenever anything went wrong, they always blamed Stanley's no-good, dirty, rotten, pig-stealing great-great-grandfather. Supposedly, he'd had a great-great-grandfather who had stolen a pig from a one-legged gypsy, and she put a curse on him and his descendants. Stanley and his parents didn't believe in curses, of course, but whenever anything went wrong, it felt good to blame someone. Well, things went wrong a lot. They always seemed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. He looked out of the window at the vast emptiness. He watched the rise and fall of a telephone wire. In his mind, he could hear his father's gruff voice softly singing to him. If only, the woodpecker sighs. The bark on the tree was just a little bit softer, while the wolf waits below, hungry and lonely, and he cries to the moon. If only, if only. It was a song his father used to sing to him. The melody was sweet and sad, but Stanley's favourite part was when his father would howl the word moon. here are the answers to the questions. Number 1. Stanley Yelnats is the only passenger on the bus and is seated about 10 rows back. He is handcuffed to his armrest. Number 2. To pass time on the bus, Stanley pretends he is going to a place called Camp Fun and Games, similar to what the rich kids do. And number 3, as Stanley looks out of the window during the bus ride, he sees mostly fields of hay and cotton, along with the rise and fall of a telephone wire. If you have any books you'd like to recommend for a drop everything and listen session, please do let me know.